without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Abby. Abby is our speaker for today. So Abby, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys. Okay, no, cancel. Okay, no screen sharing today. There it is. Okay, so I'm just going to read off of my slides if that's okay.
No problem.
Or unless I
Do you
could.
want me?
This happened last time too.
Do you want to share? Do you want to send it to me and I'll share it with the participants on the chat and they can follow along?
Yeah, that would be cool. I can drop it into the chat.
Yeah,
this happened last time too with this Zoom. I can do that.
Drop it into the chat and then our participants can follow through with you.
Yes.
And that way.
They're very simple slides anyway, but keeps me on track. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for being patient. I have all of these little technical things on my computer because, you know, people hack into computers and different things like that. And I use this for my medical health records also. So that's why it's like very encrypted. But yes, thank you so much for having me. Energy in your nervous system. Did you guys think anything when you saw that title? People are like, energy and nervous system, what does that have to do with anything? And this is probably one of my most favorite topics to talk about because energy is so apparent these days, right? I'm from California and sometimes we call it vibes. The vibe, right? Somebody's vibe, like you walk into a room and you can feel the mood, the vibe, that's all energy stuff. And it is very, very related to your nervous system. Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. So I just moved here. I wanted to just share a little bit about my story and how I came to study this stuff. My formal training is actually in chiropractic care, and I was traditionally trained as a chiropractor, meaning that I worked in a lot of physical injury type of situations. So I worked in like a personal injury place, you know, basically like sports medicine. So anything really physical. And I always saw in the past 10 years that have been in the health field, I have just seen a lot of different healing things and changes in the way people are healing. And the physical aspect of us has everything to do with our energetics, our emotions, our mental energy, all of that stuff, which is all energy anyway, right? And so that's kind of a little bit of my background. I just moved to Florida just last year. And in California, I had a chiropractic practice where I integrated a physical aspect of chiropractic care along with energetic kind of chiropractic care. And I also did, my modalities are mainly holistic, meaning that I take a look at the person as a whole, because I believe that each aspect of our lives is really interrelated to the rest of the aspects of our lives. We are not separate, which I think that's why this conversation is so key today. You know, the last couple of years, if you ever noticed, it's, you know, we have taken a step back, you know, mostly due to the pandemic because we had to slow down a lot. And we were just talking about that before everybody came on. Everybody's kind of returning back to normal, whatever that even looks like anymore. But really, we had a chance to slow down and really examine what was going on in life. And we figured out that we were really living a very segmented, kind of fragmented lifestyle. Meaning, you know, if we have something wrong with our physical life, we only examined like what was wrong in our bodies, right? But we never related that like the mental stress we're experiencing from work, maybe, you know, having some significant impacts on our like on our daily life in general, but we don't connect it. Like we know it cognitively, but we don't actually experience it for ourselves. And over the last year, since I've been in Miami, you know, I've gone through my own healing process, and I've experimented with myself and how I've been able to use like my energetic field and healing my nervous system to actually affect and, you know, affect my reality, my 3D life. And so that's super, super key. And it is just so key today. You've probably heard about all the stuff going on with a mental health crisis and the medications and how people are severely medicated today and they're not getting any better. Things are just kind of in this rabbit hole of we're doing the same thing over and over again, but we're not, nothing's changing. If not, things are getting worse, right? And what is this part of us that's very unseen, yet it has a significant effect of us in our life? So this topic of energy, right? It's not actually new. A lot of people have been talking about it for a really long time. It goes back to, Royal Rife, who has like this Rife machine that's able to detect frequencies and even now they've used that as detecting at a very energetic level how organs are functioning. Okay. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a few. Nikola Tesla was very big on this, right? Very big on the energy and the quantum field. This is all the start of quantum mechanics. And if you're existing in the world today, you're hearing a lot about energy medicine. And I'm not just talking about Reiki. I'm talking about like, how are these machines able to detect me from over here when the facility is out in like California? How does that happen, right? How does that work? Well, it's sensing your energy and your vibration by an energetic signature, right? It's like your phone number and all of that stuff relates to you. And so even Albert Einstein, he has this very famous quote that says, everything is energy and there's nothing more to it. Everything is energy at its very fundamental core. And so this energy field, right? We as humans, we don't just end at our physical body. And you've probably noticed this in yourself. This goes along with the vibes and someone's mood even affects it, right? We actually, our beings extend 3 to 6 feet past our physical body. And this is your energetic field. And this actually can be measured. Your electromagnetic field, your electromagnetic frequency, it's all energy. And we all have our own unique signature blueprint, just like your thumbprint. Everybody has their own core signature frequency. And so all of that being said, throughout our lives, we are designed as a human race, all humans across the board, all over the world. We exist in this place in the world where we are taken always further and further away from our core frequency. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, we're not exactly, more often than not, I was talking about this with somebody the other day, more often than not, are the way that we're born, the settings that we are born in is not ideal. It's more common for somebody to experience trauma in their childhood, right? Or even their mom is experiencing some sort of trauma when they're pregnant with them or whatever it is. And then on top of that, the generational trauma that occurs. All of those stories are way more common than somebody being given birth in a water bath. Okay. Like more often than not, we all have trauma than not. Right. So that's what I mean by we are in this space or in this world where we are taken further and further away from our soul core frequency. Okay. Our true energetic field, we're taken further and further away from it. And how does that happen? It happens by trauma, right? The trauma then induces a pattern of thinking, which induces a pattern of emotion, which perpetuates all of the time. And that's where the nervous system comes into play. All of these injuries, all of these experiences actually shape the way our nervous systems are receiving information. And I love to tell people, we're actually like data gathering machines. And what do I mean by that? Well, your senses always gather data from information or gather data from the environment, which then comes into your nervous system to be translated into your brain. Okay. Now, the more trauma that somebody has experienced, which translates into subconscious belief patterns and, all of those things start to affect how we view and see the world and how we vibrate. right? And so that is actually a very known thing. So a lot of different things in life that we exist in today just decrease or lower our vibrational field, right? Eating, foods that are not super good for us. Having physical trauma, which I actually, since I'm a chiropractor, I see that's usually how people make their way into my practice, is they're dealing with some sort of physical condition that they come in for, whether that's, and most of the time now, especially in Miami, I'm seeing a lot of people with burnout. People who are just significantly so beyond stress, and stress and burnout have this very, very fine distinction. Stress is very surface level, how I would describe it, right? Stress is very surface level, and you can usually move through it. It's usually, some kind of disturbance in your day, whatever it is, a stressor. A burnout is when the stress response has been sustained for so long that it actually starts to burrow into your physiology and into your brain, patterning. And now it's recreating over and over again this lived experience of trauma that you sustained. And so it is now very hard to kind of get your way out of it. Okay. And so going along with that, many people find their way to examine their, health through having a physical ailment, right? Most commonly, digestion stuff, sleep, lack of sleep, those different things, extreme stress, burnout, But then there are those underlying factors that relate to how somebody is thinking consistently, how somebody is feeling consistently. That is all contributed by your energetic field. Okay. So if you guys have any questions on that, let me know, and you can type it in the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. And so over time, we accumulate these different stressors and trauma, which actually changes the way our nervous systems are responding, which then changes our vibrational output to the world. And so many things that I see in the community today, especially like on Instagram and TikTok, is this topic of like manifestation, right? Because it's true, manifestation is actually real. And it is scientifically proven that how you're vibrating attracts into your visual, into your life, your reality, what you are, what is inside you, right? I always like to give this example of like, if you are an orange and you squeeze an orange, what's going to come out is always going to be orange juice. Well, if you squeeze an orange and a mango juice comes out, that's going to be quite impossible. Okay. So that's how that works. Whatever is inside us, how we're vibrating, we're constantly attracting those different things. And I talk about this a lot with high performing people and entrepreneurs is, I want to make more sales in my office or in my practice. I want to do more things and I want to manifest these things into my life. However, their nervous system is not healed up and not calibrated for something like that, right? And so the healing process, once it starts to take place, it really does change. What you'll notice is it starts to change you, and in turn will start to change what you actually attract out in the world, what you're attracting into your own physical reality. And all of this also is very, very brain-based because, and a really good example of this is like, if someone were to be like, okay, I want to, Tony Robbins, if you guys have ever heard of him, talks about this all the time. It's called your reticular activating system. It goes a lot with vibration because your energy field is going to dictate what you're paying attention to in life, which is actually through your brain and your nervous system. And so many people will say, I can't, it's hard for me to think positively. I always have this kind of doom and gloom, or either them or they know somebody who has this very doom and gloom kind of experience in life, right? Like they kind of have this lens in their life of just looking at things in a very negative way. And you can sometimes override that situation consciously with your mind. However, that effect is only very temporary if you yourself have not healed up yet your nervous system, meaning it's not calibrated, there's some core wounds that you've experienced that you haven't really unpacked, right? And that is, something that is very prevalent today, because like I said earlier, we live in this world where we're not actually designed, or we haven't lived a lifestyle where we're unpacking the things that have happened to us, whether it's from childhood or like whatever happened even a moment ago. That whole thing with this computer situation again happened to me last time here in this same space. It's already causing me a little bit of stress, right? But if we don't actually, experience what's happened to us, on the daily basis, we're just accumulating that into our bodies, which changes our energetic frequency. And I say accumulating because as much as things and information, things, right, sensory input, and we know we're inundated with information today and like all the time, every day. Everybody's always got access to us all the time. We're inundated with information, but as much information is coming in, we're also not having a moment to unpack the things that are happening for us, right? Which puts our system into this very fight or flight type of situation. And over time, there's actually stages to this, which they're now studying even in trauma. And I can go on many tangents about trauma. They're studying trauma now, even today, which is really significant to your core frequency and how you're vibrating out in the world. Trauma, it's not even about the actual event that has happened in trauma. It is how your system, your nervous system responds after the fact. And so I was talking about this with someone the other day, and they were saying, I look at my sister, and it's seemingly that something that's happened to her, I don't think is very stressful, yet her system is very jarred by the situation. I'm sure everyone can attest to that they know someone like that, where you're like, well, that's super easy. The solution's super easy. It's right here. It's this, right? Their system is responding to that stressor in such a different way than yours is, right? And you're experiencing in your own nervous system. And it's never about the trauma. It's never about that. It's always about the response, the person's adaptability and ability to actually move through the trauma, and their resiliency that actually makes the difference, which all goes back to going back and healing up to your soul frequency, your core frequency. I hope I'm making sense with all of this stuff that I'm saying. And so there are actually stages and phases to where your nervous system starts to affect you and your vibration, right? The very first thing you'll start to notice really is that you're having physical symptoms going on. Okay. It's kind of like your body signaling to you that there's something going on. Maybe you feel that you're not supposed to be doing something, but you do it anyway, but you already knew, right? It's your nervous system telling you like, okay, this feels unsafe. Something about the situation feels unsafe, whatever it may be. Okay. Your nervous system always knows, right? You'll start to notice maybe that, a big one, digestion. Digestion is a huge one that people don't, for many, many different reasons. It's a huge one because it is a fight or flight response when your system has now recruited, your nervous system has now recruited something such as digestion, which is actually a function of the rest and digest portion of your nervous system. That's the job of it. However, you're so stressed out that it's shunting all of its energy, all of its power, all of the blood flow out of your digestive system and into your muscles, which is a sympathetic response. It's now shunted to those things that's not in your digestive system. And now you're chronically living in this vigilant state. Okay. And that's why one of my favorite things I tell people is like, I love it when people say, oh yeah, I go to the gym to relax. And I saw this very cool word on Instagram. It's called stress laxing. When you think about it, exercise is actually a sympathetic or a fight or flight type of action. However, you are using it to relax, right? Opposing systems. So it's all neurology, it's all brain stuff, which it's like, we don't realize that because we don't know. Okay. And so you'll also notice in the very first phases in that is that your posture starts to change, and then it starts to change permanently. It actually starts to alter the way your bones look. When somebody is super stressed, and I'll kind of turn to the side and they go like this, they're in this chronic state, and you'll start to actually notice that people will start to develop this little hump right here in their back. And I had a lot of moms in California try to tell me about that a little bit, because obviously like bikini season, I don't like this little hump in my back, you know, but even more so than that, on like a very health perspective, that junction of your spine is responsible for your parasympathetic state, which is your neck, that rest and digest portion of your body, right? Into your thoracic spine, which is a sympathetic portion of your body. So there is that. And once those two things start to coalesce and get confused, what you do see in this very first phases of things getting affected is that you are very tired when you're supposed to be awake during the day. And then when you go home and you're supposed to be resting and relaxing, you really can't. So the system starts to become confused. And then you'll spiral into, I don't get restful sleep, which then in turn affects my vibration because I'm not rested. Okay. So it's actually super, super key to how that is affected overall. And so another portion of this and how it affects your your energy fields and your physical body and your nervous system and how that all correlates together is, I'm sure in this demographic, in this group, everybody's heard of their chakra system. If you haven't heard of what your chakra system is, like type it in the chat, because it's actually super cool. The chakra system, people think it's just like woo-woo. I love it. I always like to describe myself as like the marriage between woo-woo and science, because as much as scientists try to explain something like spirituality or something that's super esoteric, it's almost like spirituality or like this esoteric stuff is actually what's real, and our minds are trying to make sense of it, right? And so I saw this super cool chart, which is actually in my PowerPoint, where the chakra systems are actually correlated with the different plexus of nerves in the nervous system. Which is, I think, so freaking cool, right? So like your root chakra and like your heart chakra, all of those different chakra systems are all correlated to a plexus of nerves, which just means a bunch of nerves converging together, which then splits off into everywhere else, right? So that is actually really key. And that's what all the yogis were talking about way back when. That's what they were sensing. They were tapping into these like nerve bundles in their own physical body, which each one of the vertebrae in your spine, which your chakras, when we're talking about the traditional chakras, they actually sit on the spine. There's 7 of them. They all sit on the spine. Turns out they all correlate with a certain nerve bundle, which is so cool. And these nerve bundles control the function of your entire body. It's pretty crazy stuff. And so each one of the bones and the vertebrae of your spine, which is where your nervous system lives, it directly connects to an actual organ system, right? So talk about mind-body connection. There's a very, very physical connection between your mind and body. It's not just woo, it's not just made up, it's actually real. Everything always starts out in the energy field, and then it becomes a thought, right? And then the thoughts drop down into the emotional body. The emotions then drop into the physical body. And then it has all these layers, and it goes back and forth until it manifests in your physical reality. Okay. And all of this, by the way, can be measured, via, there's so many ways to measure if this is real. A lot of times people use heat thermography to measure like what I'm talking about. They've also done, you heard of like Kirlian photography, which they say it like measures your aura, but it's really like an electromagnetic field that they're measuring, and they correlate it with colors. If you guys have ever seen that, type it in the chat if you haven't, or if you have, you don't know what I'm talking about. This is all crazy stuff. Who knows? But yes, so all of those things can actually be measured. And your nervous system and how you're vibrating and how healed up your nervous system is. And that's a very big topic today, especially in mental health, right? I'm not sure about the people that are in here right now, in the room. I'm not sure about your field of study or how you found out about this class, but you probably already know mental health is a huge, huge topic today, like more than ever. I read about it all the time in, different platforms about mental health. And, how can we actually effectively change somebody who is suffering from mental health concerns, especially since it's so invisible and it's very subjective, right? It's like you don't know, because you're not in that person's body, what they're actually experiencing in their body. And that's what's so difficult about mental health. We want to put everyone in a box and say this and that, but we're also missing very, very large components of the mental health situation, which is the energy that somebody is sensing when they're experiencing something, right? Or even the fact that we somaticize or get it stuck in our body, whatever we're experiencing, especially if it's very traumatic, and how it actually gets stuck there. And sometimes, somebody going to talk therapy, it only helps them for a little bit and kind of gets them stuck in thinking about the trauma over and over again, which then keeps them in a loop over and over again, not really fully resolving what was going on, right? And then on top of that, it also affects your digestion, and the fact that 80% of your serotonin, your happy hormones, live in your gut. And we all know we all eat organic 100% of the time, right? We never drink wine in Miami ever. We never do that. We never have stress. We don't ever go down to down the street and there's traffic and people honking at us or whatever. That never happens, right? So we all have stress, and how stress impacts your entire system, especially your gut, which contributes to your happy hormones. That's never really addressed in the mental health field, especially only in talk therapy. So there's all of these different components that contribute to the change in your vibrational field, right? And drops down your core frequency and vibration. That needs to be addressed in the physical and 3D. So all of these things, and the gateway of all of that is the nervous system. Like I said earlier, I love to say that it's like the gateway. It's kind of like the threshold, I would say, right? Between what you're sensing and then what manifests physically in the world is your nervous system. Okay. So healing your nervous system is very integral to really honing in and getting to know your own vibrational frequency, because whatever is there, especially if you have trauma, things going on in your body, all of that stuff, it isn't the real you. It isn't your core self. It is a manifestation. You are right now in this current state. You are a manifestation of everything that has happened to you before. Okay. And on top of that, many people, and it's always this like dichotomy and conundrum in this, which is where it all comes in, is whatever has happened before, living in the quantum field, does it matter? Does it not? Right? Because what we know is right now, and if we are functioning in the energetic realm, we can actually affect the trajectory based on looking what's now present. So maybe that stuff doesn't matter as long as you heal from it. You don't need to keep reminiscing over and over again about what has happened to you or for you, right? What you need to look at is now and how you can actually affect the trajectory of your future self. Okay. And energy is very, very important in one of many ways. The most important way that I've seen in patient care is that if somebody's energy, when they have no energy, and this is a very basic like physics term, if there's no energy in the system cannot change at all, right? So if your energy is stuck somewhere as trauma, right? Subconscious belief patterns, if all of those energetics are stuck in your body is not going to actually want to heal or move forward in healing, right? That's how the energetics play a part in healing, because your body your system has to have enough bandwidth to actually create change. Now, if it's stuck in survival mode, do you believe that you can actually create change when you're just trying to survive? Most likely not. I hope this is making sense, because I can't tell. I don't see anybody. So I hope this is making sense though. If your system is just stuck managing your current circumstances, if your energetics are just stuck there, you're just, you have all these open files of unhealed things going on. You have yesterday's stuff still hanging around. You have like tomorrow's stuff hanging around. Like you have all of this stress, right, going on in yourself, in your nervous system, because your nervous system doesn't know how to move through effectively through these different things going on. You're not adaptable. You're not going through and moving on, right? This is my favorite. You tell somebody something and it gets stuck in their mind, right? And I see this all the time in the health industry. Somebody gets diagnosed with anxiety. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is my favorite. I can't tell. This is always so difficult for me because I'm like, I'm not interacting with anyone. I feel like I'm just talking, but, and this is one of my favorite things because like I said, I see a lot of people with like burnout or stress and stuff like that. And they'll typically come to me and be like, oh, I was actually diagnosed with anxiety. I have anxiety. That's what they say. And now they are latched on to that diagnosis. That's the energetics of it. They have latched on to this idea that they have anxiety, which actually energetically perpetuates more anxiety, right? How? Because if you think you have anxiety, your brain has now patterned to that, which has now burrowed itself in your patterning. And then all of the chemicals, all of the hormones, all of the neuropeptides that come with having anxiety are consistently flushed to you all the time via your brain and energy. And then what happens is you will get medicated. That's the way, if you have a nail, they usually use a hammer, right? That's what they do. It's just a simple fact. I'm not knocking it. It's cool. Not cool, actually, but it's whatever. It's what they do. So they will take somebody and they will have, they will medicate you. However, that medication will stop working and then they'll give you a different medication or they'll up your medication. I hear it all the time. So, correct me if I'm wrong. We can get into a talk about it. It's fine. But that's how they usually deal with it. As opposed to, wow, how did that happen? What was going on? What were my emotions? What was my thought patterning? How did I latch on to that idea? And now I'm perseverating and ruminating on the fact that I have anxiety. And now I have significantly identified with myself as having anxiety. And so it's actually part of the health crisis that's going on. Okay. And I could go on and on about that topic also, because, placebo and the nocebo and all of that, it's all the power of your mind, which also with energy in your mind, if you don't have enough energy in your system, if you can call it energy, I keep saying energy, but you can call it chi, you can call it prana. Prana is breath and also energy in the body, right? I'm using different terms for the same thing, which is energetics in your body. If you don't have enough of it in your system, like circulating and moving, because energy is supposed to move and flow, if that's not happening, you'll actually have the propensity to actually get stuck on a thought pattern or get stuck in a sadness pattern. okay? Which then physically affects you by wiring your brain to it all the time. And we've done that. Sorry to say, we've all done it to ourselves. We have wired ourselves for stress, and that's why we go to bed, we wake up, immediately we're stressed. Immediately we wake up and our pattern is we're stressed out. And that's just what happened in, in society. And so hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully all of that makes sense. And I have a really cool slide in my PowerPoint about the chakras and the energies and how they're all related and how each one of your bones of your spine directly relate to a certain organ system. So guys, everything's like very related. Nothing's very separate anymore. Energy is significant. We all sense it. It's like we think it's like things coming in type of thing. Intuition's actually a very body thing. Body meaning feeling, but we've all also been designed and like lived a life where we're very disconnected from our bodies. That's what happens with trauma. And I say trauma because I don't know what other term to use, but it's basically an experience that we couldn't fully experience in that moment. Can also be described as trauma. Like if you went through a really tough breakup, like I myself, I just went through a divorce. And so that was a lot. And I had to process through a lot of that stuff. If you haven't fully experienced a certain situation in life because you just couldn't, your brain and your body will disconnect from each other no matter what. And you will, that's what happens because you have to keep going. You're now in the fight or flight response. Okay. And we probably know a lot of people going through a lot of relationship stuff lately. Job stuff, right? If you are, your job's not going well, or, you have a lot of stress at work, you're not processing that, unpacking that, it gets stored in your system, affects your energy field over time. And then you're starting to attract different things, like same situations, but different characters, Why is it that I attract the same like boyfriend over and over again? Why is it that I attract the same situation, the same argument with different people, but it's the same thing? Energy vibration. So your nervous system has a lot to do with how you manifest the energy in your life. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense. And there's this quote by Einstein that I spoke about earlier. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So energy is physics. And so my biggest recommendation for, anyone stressed out, meaning needing to heal their nervous system, is like, yeah, dive deep into that. If you're noticing in your life, you're having the same thing over and over again show up, the same argument with your spouse, the same argument with whoever, blah, blah, blah. All energetics, right? We always are arguing with people about the same things, of course, because maybe we're not changing and we're not changing the way we perceive, and maybe our own system needs more energy in it to be able to see a situation differently so that we can transcend or have a different conversation, right? Because that also has a lot to do with it. Okay. And then I'll just open it up for any questions if anybody has any.
I'm just going to share that I think that this is so helpful. I wasn't expecting all of this today. I don't know why I wasn't. I just came because it, of course, it interests me. And of course, I'm being supportive of everything that we're doing here, helping women, empowering. But just listening makes tremendous sense, the way you connected everything. Okay. The thing that I'm sure you don't know the answer to this, but have you seen all of these commercials where you are already on an antidepressant? Now you need another medication to make that antidepressant work. And I'm just wondering how far we're going to get before we recognize it's not about the medications all the time. It's not. So what you're sharing here is, how do we help ourselves? And I do believe that, women are going to be much more apt to talking about their mental health and their feelings and than men. So when we look at this also, we know that women, the statistics they're out there, but more women are on antidepressant medications, anti-anxiety medications than men, and probably because they admit it. Whereas you have men that we know are, but they're never going to admit it.
Yeah.
That's not happening. But everything that you are sharing here is just, there are so many women, I put it in the chat, that I know right now who it just struck a chord with me that I'm going to have them watch the video of this because it's.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for commenting.
No,
Yeah, I never have, I like used to watch TV. I don't anymore because yes, I feel a lot for people and it was driving me crazy and I just like couldn't watch, but like my life is a living commercial because I see it and it's so powerful for me because I see people experience it and it makes my heart hurt. And that's why I got into like this entire thing. And even we can even go with that thought of energetics, right? When you think about it, this is like such a key thing that I realized even very recently. However you're doing something, meaning the type of energy you are putting behind what you are doing perpetuates more of the same thing. And I'll say this as an example. So if you are giving someone antidepressants because you want to get rid of their pain instead of exploring why is that pain there, what's going on for this person truly, you will always get more of the same thing, meaning more disease. So for me as an entrepreneur, I say this, how do I conduct my business? Do I conduct it from a place of lack, my energetics, survival mode? Or am I doing it from a place of like my soul is pulling me towards something greater and an actual service to mankind? Where is it coming from? Am I worried about my safety right now? Of course, we always are. We live in Miami and there are rent hikes. So yes, however, what's the actual truth? And I always have to go back to that, the safety. And that's why healing your nervous system is such a key thing, because when you don't and you're not aware of that stuff, you're always going to perpetuate the same broken cycle that we've all been living, right? We already know. By the way, if there's any medical doctors in here, I'm not knocking, all right? I'm never knocking anything. I think there's a time and place for literally everything. But if we only approach something from the same energetic place in the same way, we're always going to get the same result all the time. And that's why we're seeing this. It's like, how is it entirely possible? Just logically, please, just entertain me. How is it logically possible that more people now today are medicated on any pill, but more people are killing themselves? So clearly the medication isn't working. Right? I don't know, deductive reasoning. Yes, it's hard to heal. Yeah, and surrounded so much negative. Yeah, for sure. I super agree with that. And I think that's the calling right now for all of mankind, is to really, I say mankind as if I have like some sort of thing, right? I say it for myself. It's the constant message that I have myself. I am not responsible for other people and what they're doing. And if they have such an effect on me, meaning their negativity affects me so much, it means that I am not sovereign in myself. It like means that I'm like codependent on their energy. And that just tells me more about myself and how much I still need to regulate. Because I believe I can exist in my own space, in my own way, where somebody's negativity can be coming in and I could be so centered in myself and so rooted, so grounded in my core essence, my frequency, that doesn't matter. It's just noise and incoherence. Doesn't matter for me, right? So that's like the huge part about healing and how energy needs to be explored, because it's such a key thing. But yes, I completely agree with you. That's why I had to move away to Florida to like heal from all my family stuff and family like all the things I had to like segregate myself for the last year to really heal. And I've just recently been back to California. And this is the crazy about energy, right? I went back to California just a few weeks ago. And by the way, I'm Filipino, and I'm sure a lot of people here like Latin, whatever, because that's just, you know, this area. We all have like cultural patterning from like the Spaniard days, right? Like being conquered. Like I know that because I could feel it. We all have that. And we all have these cultural things about like how we're never able to express ourselves and how we're always supposed to achieve. So Asians and Asians and Hispanics is like the mix of Filipino. I would say I'm like an Asian Hispanic. My last name's Hernandez. I'm Filipino. So, and I know I'm probably like culture, like saying a bunch of crazy things, but I'm hoping you can relate. And this is just like me being authentically me. But in my family, it's like achieving is very big and doing is very big, much like if you hear any stereotypical like Asian jokes, right? Sorry if I'm offending anyone. This is just me. My bad. But same with Latin, where you're really emotional, but then like no actual productive emotion happens. Like you're like really loud, but like nothing's actually happening. It's all just noise. Yeah. I don't know if that's your same experience. That's my experience in my family. There's like a lot of talk, but there's not actual production of like resolution of stuff. So going back to that, I, you know, had my whole personal stuff. I moved to Miami. I went through a whole healing phase. And I think my soul told me to do that, like move away from everything you've ever known to like really get back to yourself and like what's happening for you. I'm 34. So I got a lot of life ahead of me. I figured it's a good time to do it. I don't have any kids, so it's great. So then I said, you know what, I'll do that. And I moved to Miami and it was awesome. And I actually healed. Now that I've gone through this, like I've utilized everything that I'm utilizing for my patients in practice. I utilize it on myself. I'm like, does this shit actually work? Like, is it theoretical? I'm a doctor. It's like, is it theoretical or is it real? No, it's real. Actually, I actually used it on myself and it worked. So then I go back to, you know, California just a couple of weeks ago. Everyone in my family has changed. I kid you not. And like life is just enjoyable. And I think it was me. I was like, whoa, wow, we're just gonna, and I stayed like way longer than I should have anyway. I like stayed for almost 2 weeks, where before I was like, oh my God, 3 days, 4 days, I'm out. Like, I can't do it. This past time, it was like almost 2 weeks and it was so fun. And everybody was like, yeah. And it was me. I was less neurotic. I was less like attached to an outcome. I was less, got to stick to a schedule, guys. We got to do this. We got to do it this way, or else I won't be happy. I was just like, you know what? We're relaxed. Our nervous systems are healed now. We're good. I went back and, you know, I even like had a good time with my dad. It was awesome. So it does change when you start healing yourself. It like changes everyone around you. And we like to think that we're like not responsible for how we affect other people, because like, why? But we do. But our responsibility is actually to fix to help ourselves first. Right. What suggestions do you have as to the first start healing process from? Yeah. When you just can't remember. Yes. Healing your nervous system. There's lots of ways you could do it through breath work, meditation. And I even say that very like, you know, yes, breath work, meditation for sure, yoga, all those things, getting in your body. So having somatic awareness. I love to do this practice on the daily, and it's actually to initiate my feminine energy, because I have a lot of masculine energy, meaning like I'm a driver, I'm a doer, achiever. That's very masculine. And now I've started to like embody this, like, hey man, no structure. Let's just like have fun and be creative. So lately I've been doing that. And it's basically sitting still. I'm not even trying to meditate. I just sit still. And I find what's good about my body sensation wise, what feels good in my body right now. And I'll go, okay, well, stretching my neck this way feels really good. So that's that's one of my suggestions on how to like get past the trauma. Because sometimes when you have trauma and you meditate, it's really actually not good, right? You're kind of like, you feel more anxious. So yeah, I would say don't try that if that's too much. I would say sit, and find what's good with you today. Like what feels good today. Oh yeah, my neck feels good when I do this, right? My head feels good when I start doing this. Yeah, or I do this. And just feel those things. And then change your vibration that way. And over time, you'll notice you'll actually be able to meditate and sit more and more still. And then sometimes, this is a question I got asked the other day. Sometimes you do need the help of a facilitator to help you heal. Sometimes you do, especially if you had a lot of trauma and you can't go there and you need an accountability buddy, right? I'm a do-it-yourselfer, so I get it. But sometimes you do need a little bit of help, like healing. So seek out the help of specialists, like, if you have more questions, get my email address. It's, I'll send it out, but we could direct you to someone, or if I can help you further. I don't like to talk about people's specific things in anything. So if you want to talk about it, just us two, whatever, we can talk about it. Super cool. And that's available. Thank you so much, guys. That was so fun. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you.